The title of today's message is Breaking Free from Fear, Making the Impossible Possible.
Get ready for some positive, encouraging, inspiring information. But before we jump into this episode, I'd like to invite you to join this community to hear more episodes that will help you become healthier emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. All I want you to do is click on the subscribe button. We love your support, and it's incredible to see all your comments, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to us.
Yes. So, welcome back to another episode of Contemporary Speaks, where we talk about things that nurture your physical, mental, and spiritual health. My name is Stephen. I am your host today. The title of today's kind of message is Breaking Free from Fear, Making the Impossible Possible. One thing I want to encourage you to do is to go back and to rewatch this video to remind yourself daily that you can break free from fear. So we're going to have a great time. Thank you for coming to the podcast. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you for joining us in-house. Today, we're talking about breaking free from fear, making the impossible possible. So what I want to start with this morning is Psalms 34:4. It says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me, and he delivered me from all my fears. I love that verse. I love that Bible verse, and we'll go into it a little bit more. But I sought the Lord. I sought the Lord. It is when we get into this place where we begin to actually seek God, right? And seek him for the things that we may be struggling with or dealing with, right? And so it says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me. And when we talk about that, I don't want to over-spiritualize this too much. I believe that anybody can sit on the side of their bed and meditate and pray and ask God, help me on my journey. Help me see what I do not see. Help me understand things that I do not understand. And if you sincerely ask God that he will actually answer you. The key is being in that position where you're willing to actually get advice from God or seeking God. And so that becomes kind of very important, right? It says, and he delivered me from all of my fears. And I don't know about you, but we sometimes live with fears and we create phobias and all these different things. And sometimes we don't even know how they come about or where they came from or how they arise. And so I want to start with this concept right here, that fear is the mind's ability to imagine danger. And I want you to kind of think about that. All fear is your mind's ability. For some people, it's a superpower. It's a super ability, right? But your ability to imagine danger, and that's what fear is. Of course, if you're in a burning building, you're not imagining that, run out, right? But I'm talking about when you fear things that are not actually happening. And I want you to think about that, right? So fear is like a person standing in the background of your mind. Always present, often silent, but representing the impossibilities. It watches over your thoughts and your actions, reminding you of potential failure, embarrassment, and rejection. Though quiet, its presence weighs heavily on your decision. It whispers that certain things are out of your reach, too difficult, or not meant for you. Yet, the moment you acknowledge its presence and challenge its authority, you realize that fear isn't a real barrier. It's a shadow, not a wall. When you confront it, discover that those impossibilities are simply perceptions that you have the power to change. So we have to understand that because many of us are dealing with fear, and I think that it's chronic fear in a lot of our lives. It's chronic fear. It's things that are just always sort of standing in the back, the unspoken presence of fear, that you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for something to go down. You're waiting for something just to go amiss or go wrong. And you're just waiting for those things. And it's when fear is always present and doesn't really allow you to laugh and enjoy the moment. And it shows itself through weird ways, through depression, through anxiety, right? Through doubt and worry. And so these are all symptoms of fear. Another thing that I want to address is the voice of darkness versus the voice of light. Here's what a Bible verse says in 1 Peter 5, 6 through 9. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all of your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kind of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world." One of the things that you have to realize is there's a constant, some people call it light and darkness, but there's a constant voice that is always sort of speaking to us. And I think that sometimes that voice is darkness, and that darkness has a very powerful stance and declares itself even as the voice of God, disguising itself as God to you, but it is really the voice of fear. And so let's talk a little bit about the voice of darkness versus the voice of light. Fear is the voice of darkness, of course, while hope is the voice of light. Yeshua himself says that I am the light of the world. And I want you to think about that. He says, I am the light of the world. Fear feeds on insecurities, okay? Making the path ahead seem unclear or unattainable. On the other hand, hope shines a light of possibilities, guiding you toward what is possible, even when the way forward isn't fully visible. While fear paralyzes, hope energizes, showing you that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a way forward if you choose to focus on the light. The key of breaking free from your fear is to listen less to the voice of darkness and lean into the voice of light, which encourages growth, resilience, and possibilities. So Matthew 19 and 26, "But Jesus looked at them and said, 'With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.'" What we understand about that is there are a lot of times that we will fail when we try to get answers or get our fix from man. There are things that only work through us really hearing God and hearing his voice comfort us in our fearful moments. Everyone can come around you and encourage you and tell you everything's going to be all right. Don't worry. You have stage 4 cancer, but it's going to be fine. And you can have all these things and you can say, yes, I believe it's going to be okay. You can speak that outwardly, but fear is somewhere standing in the background of your mind, telling you the worst will happen. Okay? And so that's why it's important to understand that with man, sometimes it will be difficult. And in fact, Yeshua says it's impossible to actually get to this place of no longer fearing. But with God, you can come into a place where you no longer have these phobias and these fears that surround us. Are you with me? The one question that you have to ask yourself is, if you listen to the voice of fear in this moment, what do you forfeit? This is the most important question that you ask yourself when you're faced with fear. If I listen to this voice now, if I give in to this voice of fear right now, what will I miss out on? What will I forfeit? Most important question to ask yourself, because fear will cost you something, and you have to realize that. Fear is a pattern within you that you can change. You have to realize that fear is actually something that you probably habitually do. It is a pattern within you. It's just kind of how you're wired right now. But that can change. That can change. If you look at John, I thought this was a very interesting scripture. John chapter 11, verse 8 through 9. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. This is a very interesting scripture because Jesus wants to return back to a place where they were just about to kill him. But he has no fear of going back. And the disciples have to tell him, you need to be afraid to go back. Aren't you worried? Aren't you fearful about going back? Because they just tried to kill you. And Yeshua's response is always golden. It's light years ahead of the human mind, right? And so instead of him saying, no, I'm not afraid, he says this. Because when you're walking in the light, you realize that you have a destiny and you have a purpose. And you realize that no one can forfeit that but you. Once again, I talked about this in another podcast where it took Moses to forfeit the promised land. It took Moses to forfeit the promised land through what he believed. Remember, when he strikes the stone, if you read this portion of scripture, God says to him that because you did not believe me. And so I want you to really understand that, wrap your mind around that concept. Not being afraid, not being fearful, because you understand that God's hand is on your life, that you do have a purpose, and you do have a destiny to fulfill. Understand that. Here's another verse, and I love this verse. I think this is a very powerful verse. This is Joshua 1 and 9. Joshua 1 and 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And this is one of the things that can encourage you, knowing that I am never in a place that God is not with me. Are you with me? So, and I'll say this because this is true, but just reading scripture doesn't always fix fear, right? Once again, someone can, I'm in a fearful time in my life. I'm really worried about a lot of things, and people can read scriptures to you and quote things to you, and it just doesn't help you. So what I'm saying to you is that sometimes just reading scripture doesn't always fix our fear. You must believe. You have to believe. And I want to talk about 3 things that you need to really believe and focus in, and just kind of sit down and settle your mind and recognize 3 things. The first thing that you should believe is that fear is a tyrant. Fear is actually a tyrant. Here's the thing that I'll say. I'll say that what Yeshua said. God is a spirit, so is fear. God is a spirit, is what Yeshua said, but so is fear. So I want you to think about fear as a tyrant. It controls and limits you, right? Dictating your choices and holding you back from fulfilling your purpose. Fear's power lies in the authority that we give it. I want you to think about that. And if you allow it, fear can rule over your life like a harsh master, stifling your potential and stealing your peace. Acknowledging fear's tyrannical nature is the first step in breaking free from its hold. You have to acknowledge what fear is doing to you, how it is manipulating you, how it is trying to lead you down the wrong road. A lot of times we won't start something because within ourselves, fear is telling us you will not complete it. You will not go through with it. you quit everything in life. And this is, once again, fear talking. We would think, I just need to be more consistent. But the problem really is that a lot of us are dealing with sort of this hidden fear that's working in our mind. The second thing that we really need to focus in on and believe and understand is that you are here to defeat your fears. And everyone has different fears. So what I fear is not what someone else may fear. The things that go through my mind that come up as phobias or fears or things that I think are going to destroy me or hurt me, those might not be yours. You have a whole kind of array of your own fears. But whatever your fears are, you are here to defeat your fears. Each of us is equipped with the strength and the ability to face and overcome fear. Life's journey isn't about avoiding challenges, but conquering the fears that stand in our way. You're not meant to live under fear's oppression, but to rise above it, taking each fear as a battle that you were born to win. So I want you to think about that. As you enter into life, you were already set up to already win. It's always going to be your choice whether or not I defeat this fear or allow this fear to defeat me. But once again, faith conquers all. Hope conquers all. Think about what I'm saying. We should not live in the bondage of fear, because that's exactly what fear is. It imprisons us, right? The third thing we must believe is this. Your fear will change if you daily surround yourself with hope. Now think about that. Your fear will change if you daily surround yourself with hope. I really need you to dial this one in. Just as fear grows stronger when fed, it weakens when you immerse yourself in hope, faith, and positivity. Surrounding yourself with uplifting people, affirmation, and scripture that reminds you of God's promises. Over time, hope rewires your mind, pushing out fear and replacing it with the courage to take action. Hope is the antidote to fear, and the more you nurture it, the smaller fear becomes. So one of your biggest strengths to overcoming your fear is that you pour in more positivity, more hope. You start speaking about things in a better way, a more hopeful way. So I have one takeaway today. My one takeaway today is that the impossible only exists when you stop believing what's possible. I'll say that one more time, and I really want you to kind of understand that. I'll unpack that just a hair. The impossible only exists when you stop believing what's possible. What you have to realize is that impossible does not exist until you believe in it being impossible. So impossible is what you personally create. You create the idea of impossible, not that a thing is impossible. So I'll say it one more time. Maybe you'll dial it in. The impossible only exists when you stop believing what's possible. A great understanding of that is that Yeshua feeds 4,000 people. And there's an opportunity to feed 5,000 people. And he asks Philip, he says to him, how are we going to feed all these people? Philip says, I don't know how we're going to feed all these people. So in Philip's mind, it is impossible. But what Yeshua wants him to see is, don't you remember what was already done? Believe in what is possible. Come on. Believe in what is possible. Stop believing the impossible. Because you are creating impossible. That's all I got to say.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching and being a part of this community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. You're going to get weekly videos on building a growth mindset, cultivating grit, and unlocking your full potential.